We're on Pei Hey Amud Beis, towards the bottom of the page, 3 lines from the bottom. Going back to what it said in the Mishnah, discussing the walls of Yerushalayim. Are they like inside Yerushalayim or like outside Yerushalayim? So it said in the Mishnah, Hachaloines v'oivi achayim v'chulu, the windows and the thickness of the wall itself have the halacha like, what it said in the Mishnah, like inside of the wall, inside Yerushalayim. So the Gemara brings a discussion regarding the roofs and the second floors inside Yerushalayim, and then it brings a raya from this part of the Mishnah, as we'll see. Omar Rav said, Gagim v'aliyos, the rooftops and the second stories of the houses in Yerushalayim, lo niskachu, were not sanctified with the kedusha of Yerushalayim. Fragt the Gemara, Eini, is this true? V'omar Rav, but Rav said, Mishum Rab Chiya, in the name of Rab Chiya, describing the way the Korban Pesach would be eaten in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. Kezeisa Pischa, that they had large groups that joined to eat a Korban Pesach. So the group was so big that everyone only got one kezayis of the Korban Pesach. V'halila, and then they would say Halal. There was such a big group and there was such a large commotion and such a noise when they said Halal. Poka Igra. They were on the second floor, and it seemed as if the roof was going to cave in from the commotion of them saying Halal and them eating the Korban Pesach. So we see here that they were eating the Korban Pesach on the second floor or on the rooftop. My love, so don't you think what happened here? The Ochli Be'igre, they ate the Korban Pesach on the rooftop, and Va'amri Be'igre, and they said Halal over there on the rooftop. So we see that they ate the Korban Pesach on the rooftop, and it's considered to be eating in Yerushalayim. So we see that the rooftop has the Kedusha of Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara, there's a Marsha, by the way, in this Gemara. Paka Igra, I touched the simple pshat of the Gemara. Paka Igra means that it felt like the roof is going to cave in. But the Marsha says, Paka Igra, that the Halal, they said, pierced the heavens. It went all the way up to Shemayim and it pierced the heavens. That's how powerful their Halal was. So the Gemara answers, Loi, that's not necessarily what happened. The Ochli Ba'ara, they ate indoors, downstairs, because you have to eat downstairs in Yerushalayim, where the Kedusha is there. And then Va'amri Bigra, then they went upstairs, and they went on the rooftop to sing and say the Halal. Fragt the Gemara, Eini, is this true? But Vatnan, we learned in the Mishnah at the end of the Masechta here, Ein maftirin achara Pesach, you don't go away from eating the Pesach and then say Afikaiman. Afikaiman literally means, let's take out our kalim from here. Afiku man. It's a combination of two words, Rashi here says. Afiku man, let's take out our kalim from this place and let's go to join another group. So you don't do that after you finish eating the Pesach. You don't go join another group. V'amar Rav, and Rav touched that Mishnah. Shelo yakru mechabura lechabura. That when you're eating the Korban Pesach, you shouldn't uproot yourself from one group and then go and join another group from the Korban Pesach that you finished here to go join another group. So over here, the same thing would apply. How could you say that when they finished eating the Korban Pesach here on the floor and the downstairs, so they uprooted from here to go upstairs to say Halal? Says the Gemara, no, it's not the same thing. Loi kashya, it's not a question. Kan b'shas achile, kan shaloi b'shas achile. If you're in the middle of eating the Korban Pesach, so then you don't pick up and go uproot from here to another group. But if it's shaloi b'shas achile, once they finished eating and they just are saying Halal, so then you can go upstairs to say the Halal. So that's what may have happened over here. So there's no raya from this braisa. They said Halal downstairs and they went upstairs to say Halal. Toshema, Gemara brings a raya from another place. Abba Shal said regarding the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Beis HaMikdash. So he said, Aliyas, Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim, the second floor there was a attic on top of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, Chamura mi Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim. We can see that it's more stringent, it has more holiness in it than the Kodesh HaKadoshim itself. Shebeis Kodesh HaKadoshim, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim itself, Kohen Gadol nichnas lo pa'amachas b'shana. The Kohen entered inside once a year. V'aliyas, Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim, and the roof, on the floor, the attic on top of that, ein nichnasan lo ela pa'amachas b'shavua. You only enter into there once in 7 years. Shavua is a Shemitah. Once in 7 years you enter in there. V'amri lo pamayim b'shavua. Some say twice in 7 years. V'amri lo pa'amachas b'yovel. Others say only once in 50 years. Leida mai tzricha, to see if it needs any repairs, to fix anything that was not okay over there. But otherwise they didn't enter there. So you see that they entered so little there, so it has more kedusha. So the Gemara here is bringing a raya that I see that the second floor on top of the Kodesh HaKadoshim has the kedusha, and even more so than the Kodesh HaKadoshim itself. So how could Rav say that the second floor, the rooftops, don't have the kedusha of Yerushalayim? Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, Meheichel, Nekim v'Nesev Vinish. From this second floor that was on top of the Heichel or on top of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you're going to ask me a question? There's no question from there. Shani Heichel, Dichsiv, the pasuk there says, Vayitin David l'Shloime benoi. David wrote for Shloime HaMelech as Tavnis HaUlam, the exact shape of the Ulam, Vezbatov, the rooms in it, Viganzachov, and the hidden places in it, Vali Yosov, and the second floors, Vachadarov, and the rooms, Apnimim, Beis HaKapeiris. So he gave them the exact rooms and floors and everything that was there. Oksiv, and the pasuk says, Hakoil b'ksav miyad Hashem alai hiskel. Everything was written, and it all came from the Eibishter. So therefore, when it comes to the second floor on top of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, even if in Yerushalayim the second floor doesn't have the Kedusha, but the floor on the Kodesh HaKadoshim is different. Tashem, I'll bring you a eye from another place. It says, Halishkais habnuyais b'kodesh. So those rooms, if you have rooms that they are built inside the Kodesh, in other words, they're inside the Azara, but a psucha is l'chayil. They don't have an opening. They're actually inside. They're inside the place of the Azara, but they don't have an opening to go into the Azara. They only have an opening to psucha is l'chayil. They only have an opening to go into the Harabayis. So it's sort of built as a room, as an extension from the Harabayis that has an opening from the Harabayis, but it has no opening into the Azara itself. So what is the status of this room? Toichan chayil. So the interior of this room has the halacha of chayil, like a harabayis. It's like an extension of the harabayis, and it's not part of the Azara. The gagaiseyen, however, the roof on top of this, kaidesh, is kaidesh because it's in the space of the Azara. So the rooftop is kaidesh. So I see over here that the gag that's on top of this has a kedusha. So I see that the rooftops was sanctified, not like Rav said. Tegim Rav Chiste, so Rav Chiste explained and said, what are we talking about over here? We're talking about a room that was basically built underground. It's like a cave underground, like this room built underground, and the rooftop is part of the Azara. It's flush to the floor of the Azara, so therefore it has the Kedusha of the Azara. But we're not talking about a rooftop that's above the ground of the Azara. So there's no raya at all. Says the Gemara, if that's what that Braisa is speaking about, let's take a look what it says in the Sefer there. Aim is Sefer, the next part of the Braisa says, B'nuyais b'choil. If you have a room that was built in the space of Chayil, in other words, in the space of the Harabayis, not in the space of the Azara, but a Psuchais l'Kodesh, it's sort of built as an extension of the Azara, so it only has an opening to go in from the Azara into this room, but it doesn't have an opening from the Harabayis into this room. So then the halach is the opposite of the Reisha. Toichan Kodesh, the interior of this room is holy, it's an extension of the Azara, but V'gagiseyen Chayil, the roof is going to be Chayil because it's in the space of the Harabayis. If we're talking about a room that's built on the ground, like a cave on the ground, so Azara, Havila, that the rooftop is flush to the floor of the Azara, so then Havila Mechilois. This is basically like a cave that's built on the ground. And Rabbi Yechanan said, Mechilois loy niskachu, that the caves do not have the Kedusha of the Azara itself. So how could you say over here in this case that if it's psuchais to the kodesh that it has the kedusha of the Azara, if it's underground, so it's like a cave? Rabbi Yechanan said whatever is underground the Azara does not have the kedusha of the Azara. This is the Gemara. Ki kamer Rabbi Yechanan. When did Rabbi Yechanan say that the caves underground of the Azara do not have the kedusha of the Azara? Bepsuchais lahar abayis. That's only if what's underground does not have an opening to the Azara. It only has an opening to the Harabayis. But when you have a room that's built underground and it does have an opening to the Azara, so the Ki Tanya Hi, when we said that what's underground has the Kedusha of the Azara, Bepsuchas la Azara. That's when it's opened up to the Azara, then it does have the Kedusha of the Azara. Fragt the Gemara, but Tanya, we learned in another Braise, it says, Rabbi Yehuda said, Mechilois mitachas ha-heichal, the caves that are underneath the Heichal. Now, underneath the Heichal, so this L'chaira has an opening to the Azara itself. I mean, it's under the Heichal, which is sort of in the center. That's not near the end, near the Harabayis. So its opening, the Gemara at this point assumes, is inside the Azara itself somewhere. And Chayil, and nevertheless he says that it's Chayil because it's underground. So we see from here, even if it has an opening into the Azara, it's also chayil. So the Gemara says, no, Kitanya even in this Braisa, when it talks about the caves that were right under the Heichel, right under the Beis HaMikdash, the case of here is Shepsuchais L'chayil. So Rashi says, it was a long cave that extended, I think Rashi says 11 amas, it extended outside, and it only had an opening into the Harabayas, and it did not have an opening into the Azara, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda said that they're chayil. If it has an opening into the Azara itself, then it has the Kedusha even if it's underground. So there's no raya from here. Toshima, the Gemara brings another raya. It says, V'gagoy kodesh. And the roof that's on top of the Heichal is kodesh. And this is the sefer of the previous Braisa that we just mentioned over here. So it says that the rooftop is kodesh. So how could you say it's Kodesh if Rav said that the rooftops were not sanctified? And Rashi clarifies that this is not similar to what it said before regarding the second floor that's on top of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That was part of the tzura of the bias that David HaMelech wrote for Shlomo HaMelech, and therefore that there's no question of, like the Gemara said before. But this, the Gagai Kodesh that's on top of the Heichel or in any other area in the Beis HaMikdash, that wasn't part of the tzura that David HaMelech made. So therefore, how is it Kodesh? It's a question on Rav. Says the Gemara, V'tizbere. Is this a question? But v'hakatani. But it says regarding the Gagin halalu, these rooftops that there are in the Beis HaMikdash, ein oichlin sham kotche kadashim. You cannot eat any of the kotche kadashim that must be eaten in the Azara. Vein sheichten sham kotchem kalim. And you can't shecht kotchem kalim that are allowed to be shechted any area in the Azara. But on the rooftops in the Azara, it's not allowed to be eaten there. So we see that it says clearly that the Gagin are not Kodesh. So now the question is, so how does the Braisa say that the rooftops do have Kedusha to them? So Rav Chama Bagurya explains, Lo'oisan Beis Amis. They have Kedusha for Beis Amis. Beis Amis they were two tools, or basically two measuring sticks that were used. The Gemara here is going to explain soon what these measuring sticks were used for. They were used basically for building in the Beis HaMikdash. So they had these measuring sticks that they stored on the rooftops. And it's only bringing this as an example because it brings from a Mishnah now, but it means there were different kinds of tools that they used for building in the Beis HaMikdash. They stored them in these rooftops. But the full Kedusha of what the Azara has, to be able to eat the kachim there, or to be able to shech the carbon there, they don't have that Kedusha. They has the Kedusha enough that they stored over there these building tools in this area. That's what it meant, Gagei Kodesh. So we in here the Gemara brings a Mishnah where it discusses these tools that were stored there. That's Nan, it says in the Mishnah, Beis Amais Hayu b'Shushan Abira. There were two of these measuring sticks that they stored in a room on top of the wall, or on the rooftop. And it was called Shushan Abira. The reason it was called Shushan Abira is because it was built with a picture of Shushan Abira. This is on top of the gates, on top of the gate of the Azara. It was built with this tzura. It was built then after the Yidden came and built the second Beis HaMikdash. So they built it with this shape to show that they got the permission from the Malchus Paras and Shushan to build it. So they built it with this shape of Shushan Abira. So this was a room on top of the wall there. So there were two rooms there. Achas al-Kerem Mizrachis Sfainis. One was on the northeastern corner of the wall. Achas al-Kerem Mizrachis Draimis. One was on the southeastern corner of the wall. And over there they would store these two measuring sticks. Zushal Akerem Mizrachis Sfainis. So the measuring stick that was stored on the Mizrachis Sfainis side of the wall. So this measuring stick, Haisi Yiseira Al Shal Moshe Chatzi Etzba. It was a measuring stick of an amma, but it was actually larger than an amma, a half a finger. And v'zushal kerem mizrachis draimis, and then they stored the measuring sticks on the other side of the mizrach of the wall. So this measuring stick, haisa yiseira alel, it was a measuring stick of an amma, but it was larger than an amma. Chatzi etzba, another half a etzba, more than the chatzi etzba of the ones on the other side. In other words, it was a full etzba, a full finger breadth, larger than the one of Moshe Rabbeinu. Nimtzas yiseira al shal Moshe etzba. It was a whole etzba larger than the one of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now the Mishnah explains, now why, when they had these measuring sticks of an amma in the Beis HaMikdash for building, did they make it either a half a finger breadth larger or a full finger breadth larger than an amma? Why? Why was one larger and one was smaller? Because the workers that did their work in the Beis HaMikdash, neitlin b'ketana means they took their payment for building the size that they were supposed to build. Let's say they were supposed to build an amma. So they took the payment and they took the contract that they made was to build b'ketana with the size of an amma, but a machzirim b'gedola. When they actually built, they would build and measure with an amma with an extra half a finger breadth. What's the reason? So that they shouldn't come to Me'ila, which means if they're going to build exactly what they were commissioned to build, so then they might build it a tiny drop smaller, and they're getting paid to build the full measurement, and they might not make it the exact measurement. So therefore they always used this amma with an extra half a finger breadth in order to build it a little bit extra, so they won't ever come to build it smaller than what they were supposed to build, and they're going to get paid extra. But the question is, still, it explains why they had it with a larger measurement than Moshe. But why was it two measurements? One was a half a finger breadth larger and one was a full finger breadth larger. Achas lekaspe v'dava. One is when it comes to making whatever they made with gold and silver, so it was just enough, a half a finger breadth larger, because when it comes to gold and silver, so you're much more particular in exactly how you built it, so just a half a finger breadth is enough. And v'achas lebinyana, and the one that was a full finger breadth larger was used for b'chlal, whatever they were building, that they made it a finger breadth larger, so they shouldn't come to make it too small, and then they'll be moil, they'll get paid extra. So therefore, b'kitzer, there's no raya from this case over here of the fact that it says Gagoy Kodesh. It's only referring to the fact that they stored the building tools in that place, but it had no kedusha otherwise. Now the Gemara comes back to our Mishnah, brings a raya from our Mishnah to this what Rav said. So Tanan in our Mishnah it said achaloinis, the windows and the walls, and the thickness of the wall itself, kilifnim, has the kedusha like the inside. So the question is bishloima hachaloinis. When it comes to the windows, so the windows, that's not the ground. Rav is saying only the ground itself has the kedusha. So now a window seal, that doesn't have the kedusha. And the top of the wall shouldn't have the kedusha either. So what's the pshat in our Mishnah? So we could answer this when it comes to the windows. Mishkachas law, the reason why it's possible that the chalonis have the kedusha, it's possible the shavia lekarka azara, that you have these windows that are flush to the walls of the Azara. Doesn't mean that the windows are built all the way at the bottom, at the ground of the Azara. But what this means is, as we'll see in a moment here in the Gemara, that the Azara was not all flat. The Azara went higher and higher. It went up. So therefore, these windows that were built in the wall are flush to a certain section of the ground of the Azara. As long as it's flush to a certain section of the ground of the Azara, it has the Kedusha of the Azara. So that we can understand. Elo, oivi achaima, but the thickness of the wall, heichim mishkachas la. Is there any part of the Azara that the top of the wall was flush to that part of the Azara? Says the Gemara, yes, we're talking about a wall, Mishkachas la bebar shura. There was a high, tall wall that was surrounding the Azara, but then there was a lower wall that was inside that. There was another wall that was a lower wall, and that wall was flush to a certain section of the Azara. The Chsiv, the Pasuk says, Vayavel chel v'chayma, that the chel and the chayma are both mourning. The chel and the chayma refers to the two walls. There was a tall wall, and then there was a lower wall. And va'amar Rav Achev, Yitayim Rav Chanina, shura ubar shura. There was a tall wall, and then there was another wall that was a smaller wall, and that smaller wall, it was flush to a certain section of the Azara, because the Azara did go up from where it was in the beginning. It went up higher and higher, so therefore the smaller wall was flush to that part of the Azara, and therefore it has the Kedusha of the Azara. But in any other rooftop or area that's above the ground level of the Azara, it would not have that Kedusha. So there's no raya against what Rav said. Gages valiyas lo niskachu. That's what it says there.
So how high did the Kedusha go?
How high?
Did the Kedusha go?
As high as the floor of the Azara. Whatever was flush to the Kedusha, the floor of the Azara, the ground of the Azara, that's how high the Kedusha goes. It doesn't go above that. According to what it says there in the Gemara, it says, Gages valiyas lo niskachu. But in the Rambam, though, I believe he paskins that there is Kedusha to the Gagan. I mean, if you think about this in terms of Yerushalayim, we said there were so many people in Yerushalayim that had to eat the Korban Pesach. If everybody has to be on the ground floor, it only makes it more difficult to fit everyone into Yerushalayim. And the only way that you can have everyone fit in is if you build high-risers and everyone can eat on tall buildings. So if you're going to say everyone has to eat on the bottom floor, it's a problem. Okay, so there's a Rambam about this. There's a big discussion about this, that maybe you could eat on the rooftops. Yeah, maybe should help. It should be negay very soon to know if you could eat on a second floor. There's lots of hotels and buildings in Yerushalayim. Are you going to be able to eat? Does everyone have to come on the bottom floor? Sagt the Mishnah, Shtei chaburais shahayu oichlin bebayis echad. The two groups that are eating in one room. So according to Rashi, when it says there Shtei chaburais, what this is referring to is to one Korban Pesach that had actually one large chabura that joined this Korban Pesach. When it came to the Shechita, they all counted on this one Korban Pesach. But then, when it comes to the eating of the Korban Pesach, they split into two groups. They're eating in Bebayis Echad in one house. Eilu hoifchen es peneim heilech. One group turns its head in one direction. They're eating in one place and they're turning in one direction. Ve'oichlin, and they eat there. And ve'heilu oichlin es peneim heilech, and the other group is turning their face in a different direction. And ve'oichlin, and they eat there. So what the Mishnah is saying is that even though they were all counted on the same Korban Pesach, the same Korban Pesach does not have to all be eaten together in one room, or even in one house actually, as Rashi here says. You can take that one Korban Pesach and then split it into two groups, and they can eat in different houses, in different rooms, in different places. And here, if they're eating in the same room and they're eating it in two groups and they're facing in opposite directions, you have a mecham, which was a hot water that was placed in the middle. This water was used to dilute the wine. That's the way their custom was then, to dilute the wine, and they would dilute the wine with warm water. It could be placed right in the middle of the room to separate the two groups. Because the point here is, one Korban Pesach does not have to be eaten all together in the same house. You can split the Korban Pesach to be eaten in two different houses, and for sure in two different groups in the same house. Now, however, the shamish, the servant, that is also eating with them, and he's pouring the wine for them. So one individual that's eating from the Korban Pesach is not allowed to eat the Korban Pesach in two different groups. Even though the actual Korban Pesach itself could be split into two groups and eaten in two groups, two houses even, but one person though has to join and eat the Korban Pesach only in one group. So when you have this shamish that's joining one group, but he's serving both groups though. He's serving the wine to both of the groups. So he's walking from one group to another. So when he stands and he pours the wine and he goes away from the group that he was eating with them, kaifitz es piv, he has to close his mouth, machzer es panav, and he has to turn his face towards the group that he's eating with them, so they should see that he's not eating the Korban Pesach with the other group that he's going to serve them. Until he comes back to his group, and then he can eat. So it should be clear that he's not eating with the other group. A kala that's joining a group, she can turn away her face from her group and she could eat separately. So Rashi over here says, Gemara is going to say that a kala, because of busha, the attention that people are looking at her, so she's embarrassed, so she wants to eat in private, so she can turn away her face and eat separately from the group. It's a machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi says that what this means is that she can't start eating with the group and then turn away from the group and continue eating separately, because then that would mean that she started with one group and then she turns away to eat separately, and one individual is not allowed to eat the Korban Pesach in two different groups. Tosfos says, no, but by a kala, she is allowed to start with the group, and then she's allowed to turn away her face, and even when she turns away, it's not considered to be like she's joining another group, and therefore she's allowed to do that. So what is the thing? What did we see here in our Mishnah? Our Mishnah here said two halachas. One halacha our Mishnah said, when it comes to the Korban Pesach as a whole, the Korban Pesach could be split into two groups. You can eat them in two different houses even. But one individual that's joining one particular group, he is allowed to eat the Korban Pesach only in one group and not eat part of it over here and part of it at another group. Sneeze and mani. So who is the Tana?
Cut it in half?
Yeah, the Korban Pesach itself could be cut in half and taken to two different groups. Sneeze and mani, who does our Mishnah go according to? Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda here. It goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya, we learned in Abraisa as follows. Pasuk, when it talks about the Korban Pesach, how you eat it, it says, Ala batim asher yoichlu oisam behem. In the houses, use a plural term of houses. Yoichlu, also a plural term. Oisam behem, they eat the Korban Pesach, the one Korban Pesach in them. Melamed, so what does this teach me? Sha Pesach nechal b'shtei chaburis. That you can divide the actual Korban Pesach into two groups to be eaten in two different houses, two different groups. Yochel, I would think, that an individual could go and eat part of it in one group and part of it in another group. Now that you're not allowed, like the Mishnah said. Talmud Laima, the pasuk says, "Bebayis echad ye'achel." In one house it should be eaten. But mekan, and from here we learned out, Omru, shahashamish The hashamish ha'achal kezayis b'tzad taner. What happens if you have the servant, the waiter? So he was roasting the korban pesach by the oven, and he forgot. He went and he started eating a kezayis of the korban pesach there by the oven. If he's smart, he finishes eating whatever he needs to from the korban pesach right over there by the oven, so he shouldn't continue eating later when he comes to serve the group where they are. Because if he does, so then he'll be eating it in two different groups. He started eating it by the oven, and then when he serves it later with the group, he's eating it there with the group, he's eating it again in another group. So therefore he has to finish eating whatever he's eating from the korban pesach right there by the oven, so he shouldn't make a mistake and forget to eat later more with the group. If the people of the group want to join him, do a favor for him to join him, that he shouldn't be alone, they can come and eat with him over there by the oven together with him, where he has to eat it over there, he has to finish over there. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, this is all Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. This is exactly what it said in our Mishnah. The actual korban pesach itself could be split into two groups, but one individual cannot eat it in two different places. Rab Shimon says the exact opposite. When the pasuk says that you can eat the korban pesach bahem in two different places, this refers to one person. It refers to a person that can eat them in two different houses. He can start eating it in one place, and he can complete it eating it in another place. I would think that you can take the actual korban pesach itself and split it into two, that it should be two different groups for one korban pesach. That the pasuk says, and you're not allowed to. One korban pesach has to be eaten in one house, in one group. One individual is allowed to separate and go from one group to another, but the actual korban pesach has to all be eaten in one house, in one group. The exact opposite of what Rabbi Yehuda said. What is the basis of their argument? Rabbi Yehuda says that you have to look at the aim. What's the main interpretation of the pasuk is the Mesayres, meaning the spelling of a word. Rab Shimon says you have to look at the way it's pronounced. So Rashi here explains, what are they arguing about? This pasuk that it said, Bebayis echad yei ochel. So the way it's pronounced is Yei Ochel, but the way it's written is Yoichal. Because if you pronounce it Yei Ochel, it should really be with two yuds, Yei Ochel. But it's only written with one yud, so you spell it, so the spelling is Yoichal. So what's the difference between Yei Ochel or Yoichal? Yoichal refers to the person, the one that's eating. Yei Ochel refers to the korban pesach, which is being eaten. So the question over here is, when it says that it has to be in one house, who is it referring to? Rabbi Yehuda says it refers to the individual, to the person, Yoichal, that the one that's eating, he has to eat it in one group. And Rab Shimon says, Yesh Eim Mikra, that you have to go according to the way it's pronounced, which is Yei Ochel, it refers to the actual korban pesach. The actual korban pesach has to all be eaten in one house. So here the Gemara brings another two nafkeminas that you have between Rabbi Yehuda and Rab Shimon. They were sitting all in one house, in one room. And there was a mechitza that was put up between them. A curtain or whatever it is was put up in between the people that were sitting there. So now they became two groups. The one that says that the Pesach, the actual korban Pesach itself, could be divided into two groups. They could continue eating, even though now the korban Pesach is split into two groups. That's okay. Rab Shimon that says that the actual korban Pesach itself has to be all in one group. So then, they can't continue eating it if there's a separation between them. In the opposite case, if everyone was sitting all in the same house, and there was a wall separating two groups, and now the wall came down, the wall fell down between them. So the one that says that one individual is allowed to eat in two different rooms, in two different places, so you could continue eating over here. But the one that says that you're not allowed to eat, one individual is not allowed to eat his korban pesach in two different groups, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, the opinion of our Tana and the Mishnah, so then, you can't continue eating. Why? So as Rashi says, even though you're sitting in the same place like you were before, but now that a wall came down, so now there's other walls that are exposed to you, and it's like you're in a new place. Before you were within these walls, and now you're like in a new airspace, in a new room. So it's like you're joining, you went to another place, and therefore you can't continue eating. Rav Kahane, kapashit le Yosef Rav Kahane, kapashit le mifshat. Rav Kahane was sitting and he repeated this two scenarios of a case where there was a mechitza put up in a room or a case where a mechitza came down in a room. And he said the halachas like we just said it. And then he said it as an obvious fact. Ravashi said to Rav Kahane, it's not so simple. You should ask this as a question. Siluk mechitza, a case where a wall came down, or vasiyas mechitza, if a wall or a partition was put up, mi have kebeis mekaimis, should we say that it's like two different places, or kebeis chaburis dami, and it's like two different groups, or not? In other words, it's not so simple to say just because the wall came down that therefore it's like you're in a new place now. You didn't even change positions, and it's like you're in a new place because you see new walls now. Or that if a wall went up, that it's considered to be like two different groups, even though it's the same people that are in the same place, but just because a wall went up in the middle, it's like two different groups. It's not so pashat, Ravashi says. Teiku, and therefore he says, this is really an ibaya, and it remains a question. The next thing it said in the Mishnah, Hakala hoifeches es paneha holo. That Hakala, when she's eating, she turns her face away to eat. My time, why does she turn her face away? So, when it says in the Mishnah, Feches es panel, so I said that the reason is, okay, let's see, the Gemara says, she's embarrassed, people, there's attention that people are looking at her, so therefore she wants to eat in privacy. Some say that she is allowed to turn away because she's embarrassed. Others say that she's obligated to turn away because of tznius, because she knows that she's drawing too much attention to herself. So this is the reason. The Gemara brings a story in connection to what it says in our Mishnah. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Nosson, Ikla lebei Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. He came to the house of Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Amru lei, they said to him, Ma shimcha, what's your name? Amalahu, he said to them, Rav Huna, my name is Rav Huna. They didn't know who he was, so he introduced himself as Rav Huna. Amru, they told him, Neisiv ma rapuria. So why don't you take a seat on the couch, which was a place which was for the important, prominent people to sit, not just on a regular bench or a chair, but to sit on the couch. Yosef, he went, he took up the offer, and he sat down on the couch. Yavule kosa, they gave him a cup to drink. Kible, as soon as they gave it to him to drink, he took it immediately and he drank. Kible and bechad zimne v'shasya bechad zimne. Kible bechad zimne. He took it by the first offer that they offered him to drink, he took it right away. And v'shasye b'trei, and he drank the cup in 2 gulps. And another thing, v'loi ahader ape. And when he drank, he didn't turn away from them. He drank facing them. So now the point over here of all of these details is that he didn't have the usual politeness that a person would have, that a person that's a guest that comes into a new place and you offer him to sit on the most prominent place in the house, go and sit on the couch. So you sort of don't take up that offer immediately. And if you're being offered to drink, so you say, no, it's okay. You only take it when you're asked a second time, a third time. And when he's drinking, he drank it in 2 gulps and he was facing them. He drank in a way that they felt like he's not having the usual derech eretz, the usual politeness that is expected of a person. So they said to him, Omru lei, my time mekaras loch Rav Huna. Why do they call you Rav Huna? In other words, we're not impressed with your behavior over here, that you don't have the derech eretz. Amalahu, so he said to them, Baal Hashem ani, this is my name. I'm the one that has this name. There are different pshatim in the Rishonim what this means. Rashi says the pshat is that from a young age, I'm already being called Rav Huna. Right? So the fact that he introduced himself as Rav Huna, so he was saying from a young age I was already called Rav Huna. Other Rishonim say that they don't understand what Rashi is saying. Why would he be called at a young age with the term Rav Huna? It's not like today when you just throw around titles for anybody. At a young age he didn't have smicha yet, so why would they call him Rav? So rather he's saying I'm called Rav Huna because I actually have smicha and I deserve this name. It's another pshat. But then there's an interesting pshat that Rabbeinu Bechaya says in Parshas Shmos, I think it is, that he was saying, Baal Hashem ani, that I'm an individual that knows that it's the shame of the Eibishter of a certain pasuk. I forgot which pasuk it is. There's a certain pasuk that there's the shame of the Eibishter, and he says, I know the shame of the Eibishter of that pasuk, and therefore I deserve to be called Rav Huna. So they said to him, so my timer, what's the reason Ki amru lach neisev apurye, when we told you to sit on the couch, yasvis, you took up the offer and you went straight to the couch. You didn't just sit on a bench or on a chair. Amalahu, so you said to them, because it says, Kol ma shayim lecha balabayis asay, whatever the balabayis tells you to do, you listen to, chutz mitzay, unless he tells you to leave. So you have to listen to what the balabayis said. You told me to sit on the couch, I went and I sat on the couch. Chutz mitzay, there are others that are not guided this. Some say that whoever put in the term chutz mitzay over here was a letz. It's not supposed to be part of the gears of the Gemara. It's a letzonis. It doesn't literally doesn't mean this. If a balabais tells you to leave, you should leave. But others are guided it and do say the gears of chutz mitzay. Now, my time, what's the reason? Ki yavalach kasa, when we gave you the kais to drink, kiblas b'chad zimna. You accepted it on the first offer. You should have not accepted it on the first offer. Amalahu, so you answered them, misarvin lekotten, ve'em misarvin legodel. Because when a cotton offers you something, so then you can you don't have to take it up on the first offer. But when a great person is offering you something, so you have to take it up right away. Right, so over here the Marsha points out, why does the Gemara have to give a new reason for this? It just said, Kol mashem lecha balabayis aseh chutz mitzay. So you offered me something, so I accepted it right away. Why does he have to give a new reason? So there's many pshatim in this. Well, the simple pshat over here is, yes, you have to listen, but still, in a polite manner. Don't take it immediately when he offers it to you. You could say no the first time, and then the second time you'll take it. He still should be polite. So therefore he's saying, no, aim is sarvin legadol. A gadol gives you something, you have to take it right away. My time, why did you drink it in 2 gulps? They felt that it's not derech to drink a cup like this in 2 gulps. The Tanya, because it says in the Braisa, if you drink a kais in 1 gulp, then areza gargaron. Then you're a gargaron. You're like a guzzler. You're drinking it all at once. Shnayim, if you drink it in 2 gulps, derech that's polite. Shloisha, you drink it in 3 gulps, megasi ruach. That's already a meaning of a person that's a hori behavior. My time, apach. Why didn't you turn away from us when you were drinking? Amalahu. So he said, it says in our Mishnah, and this is the connection to our Mishnah here. Kala hoifeches poneha. A kala, with the busha of a kala, she turns away from everyone else when she eats, but anybody else doesn't have to turn away when they eat or they drink, and therefore I didn't have to turn away. Tanan, we learned kala hoifeches poneha tanan. In our Mishnah it says only regarding the kala that she turns away. Another incident the Gemara shares, Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosi, Ikla lebei Rabbi Shimon ben Rabbi Yosi ben Lekunya. He came to this Rabbi Shimon ben Rabbi Yosi. So Yavale Kasa, they gave him a kais to drink, Kible b'chad zimna, he accepted it in the first offer. V'shasye b'chad zimna, he drank it down in 1 gulp. Omrulei, so they told him, Leisavel Amar, do you not hold of what it says, that Hashaise kaise bevas achas, if you drink a kais in 1 gulp, Harei zeh gargaron, then you're a guzzler, so why are you drinking it this way? Amalahu, he answered them, Loi amri b'kaisach cotton. This wasn't said in the cup that you gave me to drink, it's such a small cup. And v'yenach masuk, and sweet wine. When it's sweet wine, you could drink it at once. And v'kerei sirachava, and I have a wide stomach, and therefore for me, it's polite even if I drink it in 1 gulp. The Gemara finishes off with a halacha, which according to Rashi is not connected to Korban Pesach, but a halacha b'chlal b'negeh to people that are joining a meal together. Amar Rav Huna said, B'nei Chabura. So you have people, a group that are joining together, and they hired a waiter to serve them in a meal that they're going to be eating together as a group. So these people, this group, B'nei Chabura nechnasin b'shloisha, they come in together 3, and only when there are 3 of them there together, then the waiter has to serve them. But if one person comes in alone, then the waiter does not have to yet serve them, only when they come together. And v'yaitzin afilu b'echad. And when they leave, so even if they could leave one at a time, and even if it's only one of them there, the waiter has to remain with them to serve them. If they hire a waiter, he has to remain until the last person leaves. Amar Rabbe, so Rabbe says, "V'hu the ayil beidne dirigili lemeil." That's if they hired him and they're arriving in the regular time when they made up with him, the time of the meal, and they came in the set time when they usually come. And also regarding leaving, v'hu the ragish b'hu daila. It's only if they told the daila is the shamish, they let him know in advance that we're not going to all leave together, we're going to leave one at a time, then he's obligated to stay there until the last one leaves. Amar Ravina said, "V'naisnin schar domim." the person that leaves has to pay him for the job that he did the waitering service for them. And now that the waiter is staying extra time for the last person that's there, he has to add more money for them. He has to pay him extra for this. But we don't paskin like his opinion. You don't have to add extra money for this. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. It's not referring to anything connected to Korban Pesach. It's b'chlal the halachas b'negeh to hiring a waiter. Taisvis says, he brings the pshat from Rabbeinu Hananel, that it is talking about a Korban Pesach. We were talking here about a group joining the Korban Pesach, and the Gemara is saying that you have the people that are joining in a Korban Pesach, so they have to join together in a group of 3 to come and eat together. But then the Gemara is saying that they come and join together. If one guy just picks himself up and leave, if they were there together and one person picks himself up and leave, so then you could eat it even though there's no 3 people over there. So Taisus teaches the Gemara b'nigeya to the Korban Pesach. And then once they're there together, even if one of them leave, they can still continue eating the Korban Pesach, and they don't have to wait for the other person. Hadron Allah Keitzat Seilen. End of the Pedic of Keitzat Seilen. Yeah, starting with Pedic and Mitzvah tomorrow.